You won't believe what you're about to hear. 2 minutes from now, your sense of what's possible could shift, but only if you listen all the way through. Stay with me. I want you to picture a rainy Tuesday, a single mother named Sarah, exhausted and 3 months behind on rent. Her phone buzzes, a number she doesn't recognize. A calm voice says, "We were moved to help someone today. We think it's you." A voice we've never heard, an anonymous check for exactly the amount she needed. She wept in her kitchen, not because the money was nice, it was, but because it arrived at the precise moment she had accepted that she might lose everything. Was it a miracle or an improbable coincidence wrapped in human kindness? Sarah called her landlord, paid the rent, and that winter she started a small online business that changed the course of her life. That moment tightened the thread of her faith in something beyond sheer chance. Listen to this next one. Pastor James had been walking away from the church he'd led for 20 years. Fewer people came each week. Donations were shrinking. Doubt gnawed at him. One evening, he drove aimlessly and found himself at a tiny diner on the highway where an old man sat alone. They struck up a conversation. The man, who introduced himself as a retired engineer, had been deeply influenced by one sermon James had preached 15 years earlier, a sermon James barely remembered. He said it changed his life, led him to reconcile with his estranged son, and inspired him to start a community center. He reached across the table, pressed a small envelope into James' hand, and said he wanted the church to keep running. The donation covered the next 3 months and bought time for James to reimagine his calling. Was that a coincidence of timing or a nudge from something larger? James decided to stay and rebuild, because sometimes faith is resurrected by the quiet testimony of one person we would otherwise never meet. Now imagine a young man named Miguel, fresh out of university, facing a choice between 2 job offers. One job paid more but required relocating across the country. The other was modest, local, and tied to a nonprofit working with youth. He flipped a coin, like so many of us have when decisions feel impossible. Heads, go. Tails, stay. It landed on its edge and then fell, right down the seam. Neither heads nor tails. He laughed and chose the nonprofit. Years later, Miguel credited that small, absurd moment with changing his life. The kids he met became family, and he discovered a purpose that money had not promised. Did a coin landing oddly amount to a miracle? Or was it simply the universe forcing him to notice what his heart already wanted? I know what you're thinking. Extraordinary stories, but perhaps explainable. That's the point. Every story I share walks the thin line between chance and meaning, because real life rarely gives us neatly labeled answers. People who have experienced these moments often say the same thing. Whatever you call it, something shifted inside them. A fear dissolved, a resolve deepened, a kindness returned tenfold. Those inner transformations are the gravity that pulls the narrative into the realm of faith. There was a woman, Amina, living in a city where she felt invisible after her husband's sudden death. One night she prayed, not for dramatic change, just for a tiny mercy, that she would not be alone. The following morning, while waiting at a bus stop, a child she had never met ran up and hugged her because he'd lost his mother and needed someone to sit with him. The two of them began meeting daily after school. She became a second mother to him. That child later told her, "You saved me." Amina felt saved in turn. You can call the hug a chance encounter, but she calls it the moment she stopped believing she was alone. You can track lines of probability until you're dizzy, but that naming, being saved, is the language of faith. Think about rescue stories too. An elderly man, Thomas, got lost in snow in the mountains, his phone dead, his strength failing. He thought about all the regrets he carried and began to pray not for rescue, but for the courage to accept whatever came next. Hours later, a group of hikers found him because one of them stopped to fix a broken boot, delaying their hike by just enough minutes that they happened upon him at the edge of a trail. The hikers never agreed on why they delayed. Some said it was intuition, others a random act of misfortune that turned into fortune. Thomas believed he was spared for a reason, and spent the rest of his life making peace with people he'd wronged. Whether you call the delay coincidence or providence, the result was the same. He changed. Now, I want to be honest with you. Our brains are pattern-seeking machines. We stitch meaning into random dots because meaning is how we survive emotionally. But faith at its core is not the denial of chance. It's a commitment to interpret certain cracks of light as invitations. Invitations to love, to act, to forgive. A miracle to one person can be a statistical outlier to another. That tension does not negate either perspective. It enriches the conversation. Here's an experiment you can try tonight. Write down 3 moments that felt impossible. A call when you needed it, an unexpected kindness, a decision that landed you where you are. Ask yourself 2 questions about each. Could this be explained by probability alone? And how did it change you? Notice which question feels more alive. The answers won't always be the same, and that's okay. As we near the end, let me tell you about something small but strange. A hospital waiting room where a violinist played for an hour without being asked. People stopped wailing, the steady rhythm of fear eased, and a woman turned to the violinist and said, "Was that for me?" He smiled and said, "I don't know, but I played until someone stopped crying." Sometimes the miracle isn't an event that rewires reality. It's a human being deciding to keep playing until someone laughs again. If you stayed with these stories, you're probably sitting with a question now. Which would you choose to believe? I won't tell you. Instead, I'll leave you with this. Whatever label you give, miracle, coincidence, grace, chance, the test of meaning is not how unexplainable it is, but how it moves you. If it softens you, pushes you to be kinder, or asks you to risk trusting again, it has the working name of something holy. Before you go, do one thing. Think of the last time the world surprised you with goodness. Leave it in the comments. Read someone else's story. When you tell a story, you multiply its power. If one of these moments landed inside you, share it. You might be the person who keeps someone else from walking away. Thank you for listening. If you want more stories that will stretch how you see the world, subscribe and click the bell so you won't miss the next one. If this moved you, like the video and share it with someone who needs to hear a little proof that life is stranger and kinder than we expect. One last thing. Keep your eyes open. Small miracles tend to arrive in the same clothes as ordinary kindness. Goodbye for now, and be ready to be surprised.